The first time I noticed her lipstick on his glass, it wasn't at a dinner or a party. It was in my own kitchen. A coral shade I'd never wear, wrapped around the rim of the wine he swore he didn't finish. He laughed when I asked. She didn't. My name's Elena, 36. I teach literature at a local college, the kind of job that fills your head but empties your home. My husband Tom works in finance. Charming, ambitious, and chronically absent, he speaks in numbers, not feelings, and wears fatigue like a tailored suit. My best friend Claire is his opposite. Vibrant, magnetic, the sort of woman who turns every room into her audience. We've known each other since university. Back then we used to share everything: dreams, heartbreaks, bad wine, even laundry detergent when rent was tight. She was the kind of friend who finishes your sentences and your wine. We still talk daily, about work, about love, about the invisible exhaustion of adult life. Claire once told me she envied my marriage. She said it with a smile, the kind that looks like a compliment until you realize it's a confession. I didn't know envy and hunger looked so similar. Looking back, I think she loved me first, or at least loved what I had. It started like most things do, with good intentions and bad timing. Tom had been working late again, entire weeks blurring into quiet dinners and colder mornings. I told myself this was what stability looked like. Love diluted into routine. Claire noticed before I said a word. She always did. One night after class, over too much wine and not enough food, it spilled out. The distance, the silences, the feeling of being married to an echo. Claire listened the way therapists do in movies, chin tilted, eyes soft, perfectly still. But there was something else behind her gaze, something measuring. She said what I couldn't say myself, that I deserved more. After that, it became a ritual. Thursday dinners, shared bottles, long conversations that stretched until the restaurant dimmed its lights. We dissected marriage like scientists. Love as a formula, commitment as decay. "You're shrinking for him," she said one night. "One day you'll disappear entirely." The way she said it, gentle, almost mournful, made me believe she was trying to save me. Tom noticed too. He thanked her once, half joking. "You've been good for her," he said. "She's smiling again." I laughed along, pretending not to see the look that passed between them. Fleeting, familiar, dangerous. I used to think real friends hold mirrors, I remember thinking. I didn't realize they could hold knives, too. So when Claire told me I should leave him, her hand warm on mine, her voice trembling like empathy, it sounded like mercy. But it was rehearsal. Before everything unraveled, we were ordinary, in that quietly enviable way that makes people believe you figured something out. Tom and I met in a bookstore. He was buying a biography, I was hiding in the poetry section. He asked for a recommendation, and I spent 10 minutes convincing him that love stories could still be serious literature. He smiled like he already knew he'd win me over. He wasn't romantic, but he was steady, and I mistook stability for devotion. He built spreadsheets, I built metaphors. Together, we built something that looked a lot like a life. Our early years were full of small ambitions. The first apartment, weekend getaways, late-night takeout on the floor because we couldn't afford a table yet. We told ourselves that love didn't need fireworks, just a fuse that never went out. We were the kind of couple who always had matching luggage but separate calendars. Claire was there from the beginning. She helped me pick my wedding dress, gave the toast that made everyone cry, and moved in next door for a year just to be closer. She was bridesmaid, best friend, and somehow family. When our cat got sick, she stayed up with us all night at the vet. When Tom got promoted, she baked him a cake. When I doubted myself, she reminded me how lucky he was. There were moments I should have noticed. Her hand on his arm too long during a joke. Their laughter that came too easily, the way her eyes followed him when she thought I wasn't looking. But I told myself that familiarity was comfort. I didn't know it was camouflage. By the time I realized they'd been studying me, learning how I loved, how I trusted, how I forgave, the test had already been graded. It started on one of those nights when silence turns sharp. Tom and I had another argument. Small, meaningless, but it left that familiar ache in the air. I packed a small bag and drove to Claire's apartment without thinking. She opened the door before I knocked twice, already in pajamas, already holding 2 mugs of tea. "Rough night?" she asked, her voice low and warm. I nodded, sinking into her couch like it could swallow everything I didn't want to feel. She didn't push, just listened, her eyes soft, her hand occasionally brushing mine. After a long pause, she said it quietly, almost like a secret she didn't want to say out loud. "He doesn't make you happy anymore, does he?" It was the kind of question that sounds like empathy but feels like an incision. Sometimes it takes someone else to give your doubts a voice. The next morning, Tom texted me, "Claire told me you're hurting. Let's talk tonight." My stomach dropped. The conversation I thought was private had already been packaged and delivered. My pain turned into their shared language. That night, Tom was suddenly patient, soft, attentive in ways he hadn't been in months. He said Claire had helped him see things differently. The intimacy between them, disguised as concern, unsettled me. I told myself it was friendship, just friendship. But over the following weeks, Claire became the bridge between us. She'd check in after our fights, gently translate our emotions, feed him my side before I could speak it myself. She said she just wanted to help, I remember thinking. But help has fingerprints. She'd send me texts like, "He's really trying, Elena. Don't give up yet." And send him messages like, "She still loves you. I can tell." It was like she was writing both halves of our story, editing our lines, deciding when each of us should break. Then, one evening after another long venting session, she reached across the table, her expression almost tender. "If you're this unhappy," she said softly, "maybe letting him go is an act of love." I remember nodding slowly, the words wrapping around me like comfort. I didn't realize she'd already decided who he'd land with. It ended quietly. No screaming, no broken dishes, just the soft, exhausted kind of silence that follows 1,000 small disappointments. Tom had forgotten another dinner, another promise. I remember standing in the doorway, holding 2 plates of food that had gone cold. I didn't feel anger anymore, just a hollow certainty. When I told Claire I was leaving him, she showed up within the hour. No questions, no hesitation. She moved through our bedroom like she'd memorized the layout, folded my clothes carefully, helped lift boxes into her car. She cried harder than I did. I thought it was empathy. It was grief for secrecy. When I signed the final papers, she took me out for wine. "You're glowing," she said, smiling like a proud sister. This was right. And for a while, it did feel right. The air was lighter, my thoughts quieter. I even started teaching an evening class again. Stories about freedom, irony, consequence. Tom called sometimes. His voice was soft, uncertain. "You've changed," he said once, like it was an accusation. Maybe I had, I told him. Or maybe I just stopped apologizing for wanting honesty. He didn't reply. Then, 6 months later, Claire vanished. No texts, no calls. Her number stopped working. I assumed she'd met someone new or moved abroad, chasing another adventure. She was always reinventing herself. Until one morning, my inbox lit up with an unfamiliar subject line, "Claire and Tom, a new chapter begins." It was a wedding announcement. A small ceremony abroad. A handful of guests. The photos looked like déjà vu. The same vows, the same venue. Even my old dress altered slightly. Fitted perfectly to her. I wasn't invited, but my ghost was. I stared at the screen until my reflection blurred with hers. 2 women, 1 history, 1 mistake. Then I deleted the message. But I couldn't delete the symmetry. She'd convinced me to leave him, then stepped into the space I'd vacuum sealed for her. The months that followed were quiet in the kind of way that hurts. I moved into a small flat with creaking floors and too much light, started teaching evening classes again, filled my days with other people's stories so I wouldn't have to face my own. Grief is a slow-moving animal. It doesn't chase you, it waits. It sits in corners, patient, feeding off every silence you pretend not to hear. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. Her name on the screen. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity is its own form of self-harm. "Elena," she said, cheerful, casual, as if the last time we spoke hadn't ended with a shattered marriage and a vanished friendship. I wanted you to hear it from me. It wasn't planned. It just happened. That's the language of cowards, passive verbs for deliberate choices. She talked about fate, timing, connection, about how Tom needed someone who understood him. I laughed. I taught you both how. There was silence on the line, the kind that sounds like shame but feels like victory. After that, I blocked her number, deleted the photos, pretended distance meant peace. Then, 2 weeks later, an email arrived. The subject line was simple. I think I made a mistake. Tom's words spilled out. Apologies, confusion, nostalgia. She's different now. Distant. I don't know who she's become. I didn't reply. I didn't even smile. But something inside me shifted. A small, satisfying click, like a lock turning in the dark. They'd taken everything from me but the satisfaction of watching it rot. A year later, the invitation arrived. Embossed, elegant, pretending to be innocent. Housewarming, Claire and Tom. I almost laughed. People love recycled stories. They wanted to see how the sequel turned out. So I went. The house was beautiful in the way déjà vu always is. The same decor style I once chose. Oak floors, pale walls, gold accents. Even the scent in the hallway was mine. The candle brand I used to buy in bulk. Claire greeted me first, a flute of champagne in hand, smile stretched too wide. "Elena, you came." Her voice wobbled at the edges. Guilt makes even cheer sound fragile. Tom appeared behind her. Older, tired in the eyes, the shine of ambition dulled into routine. He hugged me briefly, like someone greeting a memory he wasn't sure he wanted back. She'd gotten everything she wanted, and now it looked like a burden. The guests were busy comparing renovations and mortgage rates. I played along, laughed when expected, even complimented Claire's dress. She beamed, eager, like approval was oxygen. When no one was watching, I slipped my coat from the rack and found Tom's hanging beside it, the same gray one he'd worn the night we first met. Inside the inner pocket, I placed an envelope. Thick, white, unassuming. Inside it, printed copies of Claire's email exchanges with a younger colleague from her office. Flirtation disguised as mentorship. Lunch breaks that lasted hours. I hadn't gone looking for them. She'd given me her old laptop months ago. A fresh start gift when I moved flats. I just hadn't deleted her past as quickly as she expected. People always forget to wipe their hard drives clean. I didn't stay long after that. Complimented the wine, hugged her goodbye, smiled at Tom one last time. And then I left. I didn't stay to watch it happen. I just walked into the night, knowing the match had already been struck. Months later, I heard through mutual friends. Claire and Tom had separated. No surprise there. Affairs built on ruins don't stay upright for long. Then came the whispers. A car crash. Late at night, in the rain. Too much wine, too little reason. Claire died instantly. They said it was tragic. I thought it was predictable. Tom survived. A few bruises, a broken rib, the kind of injuries that hurt just enough to remind you what's left. Within weeks, he'd left the country. No forwarding address, no goodbye. I didn't go to the funeral, but I sent Lily's, her favorite, with a note that read, "To the best friend who taught me everything, especially the ending." People called it dark humor. I called it honesty. My best friend convinced me to leave my husband, then married him herself. Maybe she thought love was a competition. I just learned how to play the long game. Some betrayals end with forgiveness, others end on the highway at 2 a.m. Either way, someone always swerves too late.